Hey, it's 8:02 a.m. It is March 27th, and it is Wednesday, smack dab in the middle of the week. Okay, hopefully you guys are having a decent work week, hanging in there. I just wanted to come on here and make this video. I was really feeling stagnated yesterday. A lot of the thoughts were coming to my mind about the whole issue of my struggles, my struggles, not just in this life. I think what really got me is yesterday was me thinking about this past life and the tragedy that occurred in my past life because of pretty much the same issues that I'm going through now. As everyone knows, I just recently uh, put out two videos putting the connection between Prince Alamehu and Calvin Braganza, which I think is really, the minute I noticed that name, something just struck me as like kind of not funny or kind of humorous in a way, even though this is to me, a very dark story. To me, it's very dark. It's very sinister. I am not comfortable being a victim of something this disgusting. To me, I look at this issue as disgusting. It's not the fact that at one time I was given the gift of immortality. This comes from, the gods. Obviously, this is a part of my lineage. And I don't have I shouldn't feel bad about who I am or how I was born. I appreciate the gifts that I was given. My psychic energy, my ability to manifest things, understanding these sort of things is my life, and I've always appreciated who I am. So I'm not in any way ashamed of that. That is something that I am happy with. Now, I don't go around boasting about it. If people see me in the stores or something like that, people don't I don't go around talking about, my beliefs, who I am, my powers or anything like that when I meet people. Okay? It's just something that I this is who I am. Okay? And apparently I was this way in my last life, coming from Egypt all the way to my probably my very first life that I ever came on this earth. This is who I am. You know what I mean? I'm completely comfortable in my life. But I am not happy with the abuse that I received throughout my life. Okay. And it to me it's so um, it is it kind of goes along the lines of people who've struggled because of their um, being a good person. Kind of like people don't, I mean, people usually are uncomfortable with people who have higher morals or whatever, mainly because it makes them look at themselves. Okay. And I'm not in any way trying to, rub that in anyone's face because I've never been like that. And anybody who knows me knows that. Okay. But I've been targeted out of envy from people. And see, when you're dealing with people of different races, backgrounds, some people, okay, have it in them to where they want to constantly be the winner. You know what I mean? They want to take sides. They want to be the best. Okay. And they are almost obsessed about it to where, I've never thought about before I realized that I had Egyptian blood, before I realized that, okay, um, my stance on that issue is that I believed that everyone was who they were. Meaning, like, I don't believe that people are necessarily everybody has their own traits. You know what I mean? They all have their own traits. They all have their own whatever. I never wanted or tried to come up against the white establishment in any way, but I did understand and realize that I was dealing with a lot of discrimination in my workplace, in life, even sometimes when it came to like buying apartment or renting apartments or renting a house or whatever. I've come up with racism in my life. Okay. And that's their hang up. Okay. I'm referring to white racist people. That's their hang up. That's their obsession. They are the ones that launched this hate campaign on me. This is not me trying to make a rant baddie video, but I think everybody knows what I'm saying is true. I did absolutely nothing. This was something beyond my control. I was taken when I was 7 years old from Ethiopia and placed in England. Okay, a place so foreign to me. You know, when I look at it on the map, you know, from distance and distance, it's kind of like, wow, you know, they're kind of close in a way, but you know what I mean, on a map, okay? But still, that's quite a distance from home. You know what I mean? From, you know, what you are, what you know, everything that you connect with was completely ripped away from this person. Okay, much like it was in my life. Okay, and then he goes and he lives in England. He's in England with people who are basically his father's enemy. Okay, his father took his own life. Okay, and apparently I ended up taking my own life when I could not survive, you know, traveling and struggling and, you know, whatever. So then I ended up getting married, and I think I went into the story pretty well. Okay, um, but it's tragic because of what I see is the obvious injustice, okay? And when you look at the people who participated in this, I don't know what story was told to people for them to participate in this nonsense, but they were on it like they were bloodthirsty, out for a person who never fucking did anything to them. This is why I have an issue with people. And this is what led me to the point of where I am not somebody who really likes socializing at all at this point. But I do, you know, I understand it's important to maintain relationships. So, you know, and there's people on social media that I do appreciate interacting with. I do, okay? But you have to understand from my point of view that everything in my life that involved these people who targeted me has turned to shit. Everything. And this is one of the things that made me sad about knowing that my soul tribe were celebrities, because of course I don't want to ever have to look at these people like how I had to look at people like my family or the kids that I went to school with or co-workers that were sick and twisted. I don't want to do that. I don't want to mix all of that shit in my memories, because those memories that I had when I was in the backyard or walking to school happily or watching you guys on TV or whatever, those were some of the most precious moments in my life, and I choose to keep those separate. You know what I mean? I choose to keep them separate from my memory of this nightmare, because it's a nightmare. Okay, and I understand some people get used. You know, they used my soulmate against me, apparently, in my past life. Okay, and it shattered me. Okay, I realized my family was fake in this life. Okay, and it disturbed me and it twisted. I mean, this to me is such a sick thing to do to a human being. And yes, because I live and breathe and look, if I was to go out, okay, and just if I was to throw on like things like sweats, whatever, maybe a beanie or something like that, and a simulated walk down the street, okay, and I wasn't wearing like, you know, my nice little sweaters and my little hats and everything, because I wear those sweaters and stuff like that because I love clothes. Okay, but still, what I'm saying is I could look like I function like everybody else. I could bleed like everybody else. You know, I eat, I drink, I sleep, whatever. Okay, like everybody else. Okay, I'm a human being. But when you look at people's DNA throughout the races, everybody comes from something different. Okay, and everybody comes from gods, and I believe they come from different gods. Okay, and all these different gods had different powers. So basically, what I was targeted for was my race. Okay, I was a victim of racial targeting in this life and the other life as well. Okay, and like I said, just because I am acknowledging that does not in any way mean that I am putting down the white race. Okay, this issue was so sick that it would cause black people to turn against me because they use religion as an issue too. Okay, so it was like me walking among people and me being a bad guy for shit that I had no fucking idea. And a lot of people, maybe it almost seems like when I was dealing with my targeting that that the snooty, shitty attitude that I got from people was almost as if they were like, well, you know what you did. And I'm like, I don't fucking know what you're talking about. A lot of people who have past life experiences, or they come to the realization that they're reincarnated, they don't come to that for years. And some people never do. This is one of the reasons why we've been on this earth so many times. We reincarnate over and over and over again, and we don't really know anything until one day something happens for some people, and they bump into this realization, wait a second, and they start looking into it. Okay, and this is what happened to me. I had no fucking idea. No idea. But in the last few days, I've been thinking about things that, like, my family said. Like, I remember I had mentioned before, like, my parents would talk about, you know, the Egyptians and like the Moors and all these black people who had, you know, were powerful people at one time, but how history was erased or whatever. And I just thought that was just their little chitty chatter conversation. I never really thought it was like that it had anything to do with me or that any of that. You know what I mean? And I knew nothing about Prince Alamehu or anything. But one thing I knew is that when I would go to school, I had to deal with shitty kids. One thing I knew when I look back on my life, we hardly had any African American kids in our in our school. Okay, back in the 70s, there were a few. There was a boy who was a few years older than me. Of course, there was my brother and my sisters. Okay, there was another girl, but when I think about the few other black kids that were in the school system at that time, I know that they did not have to deal with half of the shit that I dealt with. So what exactly was it about me that stood out? You know what I mean? I understood that when I was on the playground, I functioned pretty much just like any other kid. I liked going on the swings, I liked going on the slide, you know, that stuff like that. Okay, and I was a very outgoing kid, you know, when I was a little kid. So I was marked, okay, unjustly for years, okay, and this went on and on and on and on and on and on. When it really gets down to it, this is what it is. I was targeted for my race. Now I'm going to be back with another slide here because I'm making this on PowerPoint because I was doing some digging and I found something that I thought I'd share with you relating to Calvin Braganza's last name, which I mentioned when I first saw this online. I thought it sounded ridiculous. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with the name, okay? But it's just like, okay, I know that it was very unlikely for someone at that time. Now, nowadays, it really would not throw me away. It wouldn't blow me away at all. But back then, it would. So I'll be back with another slide. Okay, so then when I mentioned that I thought the name was ridiculous, I did think to myself, okay, well, that name's got to be either Portuguese or it's either Italian, okay? And I didn't think much about it at the time, and then I forgot about it. But like 2 nights ago, or maybe was it last night? I don't remember. Like I said, every day is pretty much the same with my life these days. I wanted to look up the surname, okay? And I did look up the surname name the first time, but it was actually, I saw like the, what do you call it, the crest. They had a crest, okay, and I saw what their crest looked like. Okay, but I stumbled upon this particular article on a different day. Okay, so I found this thing on Wikipedia, and it's called Curse of the Braganzas. Okay, so I'm just going to read this really quick, and it says, the Curse of Braganzas is a myth referred to in several historical chronicles concerning the House of Braganza that ruled the Kingdom of Portugal from 1640 through 1910, the United Kingdom of Portugal, Brazil, and the Argylls from 1815 to 1822, and the Empire of Brazil 1822 through 1889, and therefore all the Portuguese overseas empire. The curse began in the reign of King John IV of Portugal in the 17th century when the monarch allegedly kicked a Francian fair who was begging for alms. In reply, the fair cast a curse, saying that never again would a firstborn male of his family live long enough to reach the throne. Since then, the three exceptions, all the firstborn males of his dynasty died before they reigned. Now, I found this very interesting, okay? Because, okay, obviously my origins are not from Portugal. I am not Portuguese, okay? I'm not from Portugal, okay? But, okay, I was a prince in Ethiopia, okay? Now, the curse was from this particular beggar was that no firstborn male would live long enough to reach the throne. I'm wondering if maybe I took on the name Braganza because I understood what went on with this particular person, and I kind of related to it, even though these are two separate issues. Okay, so this is why I'm thinking maybe either I gave myself that name or somebody suggested that name based off of what happened with King John the Fourth. Okay. I'd like to know what you guys are thinking on this, but that's what I was thinking. Anyway, I'm coming back with another slide. Okay, so this is a list of the alleged victims. Apparently, these people did die, but they did die, but they're not sure if no one can ever confirm, of course, because it's a supernatural thing, that these people actually died because of a curse. But here's a list of the men who died. And then apparently, some of this actually affected the women, too. There's a list also that showed some of the women who died, who were associated with the Braganza line. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to make a video today because there was a lot on my mind about how I feel about this issue, and I've expressed my feeling on it over and over and over again, and I've expressed how disturbed I am and how it makes me feel, and how disgusted I feel in humankind. I remember, I knew that I was what they call a genius for a while. And I remember having a conversation with a girl whose mother was also a genius. And she was telling me how much her mother hated people and how her mom really just kind of cut herself off and kind of became a weirdo. I would say that is becoming me. I really don't deal with, because I've seen something, experienced something all my life, and I'm not able to see people in a positive way. That's not to say that I don't have compassion for them. It's not to say that I can't care about people. But my first instinct when I meet people is I have to be careful about who they are. I'm not open to trusting people very easily. And I certainly don't want to bring people in my house, and I'm very careful about the kind of influence that goes on my house. I know that in the past I've dealt with that sort of outside intrusion, which literally I can't take it. Okay. Now I got some thoughts that went through my mind. Some of these are repeated thoughts, okay, because I'm still putting the pieces together of and there's yesterday I was burnt out. I don't want to think about this anymore. I just my brain gets to the point where it's just it's so dark. It's dark to me. It is dark. It's twisted. It's everything under. I'm not comfortable with any of it. Okay, so anyway, I did mention that I was a gender bender in my past life. Okay, now I had mentioned that I was my soulmate's wife when we were in Egypt. Okay, and throughout this transition, you go from male to female, in certain lives, whatever. Okay. Now, I don't believe that I was ever somebody who really, 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 really liked sex. Like, I've never been one of those people. Like like I could take it or leave it. Okay, and I've just, to me, um, I'm not. I don't know. I'm just, I don't know. That's not to say that I don't find people attractive, because obviously I do. There's attractive men and women, okay? But I've, I don't know. You know, to me, it's just I don't want to feel obligated to have sex with people. You know what I mean? I'm just, I don't like people touching me, and I've seemed to have been this way all my life, and it's probably because I've dealt with gaslighting, fake people, or people who became monsters because of the people who were targeting me all my life. That could very well have something to do with it. But whatever it is, whether I choose to be somebody who engages into a sex life or not, I can assure you, I would not want to have any sort of relationship with anybody who is closely tied with these people. Okay. I'm a part of my distance of whether it be sex or even people coming up and giving me a hug, okay, is the fact that I don't like being around people who are full of shit. Now, apparently, I produced a child with my soulmate, okay? Maybe we were intimate at one time. Maybe I felt obligated. I don't know what it is, okay? But like I said, I'm not somebody who is just like a hound, a fiend, or whatever for sex. I'm just not, okay? But apparently, I did have this like effeminate type behavior. I don't believe that. See, now at the time, my soulmate was a girl, and at the time, I still wasn't interested in sex. I am a woman in this life, and I can't really say that I really have that big of an interest in sex. Okay, that's who I am. And I do believe that people were trying to like put me in situations to kind of prove, oh, sex is okay. You get, you'll like sex, you'll whatever. Okay, you know what? If that's fine. But when you make it into an issue of work, when you make this into a public issue, when you do something this huge, it becomes something improper. Okay, and it puts me in a position of being a victim. I don't need that shit shoved in my face. You know what I mean? If I want to have a sexual relationship, I will go out and have one. Okay? And I sure as hell don't think I will have one within being in the context of marriage. Okay? Because obviously, I don't want to be married ever. Okay? And I've made it very clear I don't trust people. I will never trust people. Okay? I don't miss the idea of being married. Okay? What I wish I had is I wish I had people that I could trust, people I could be friends with. You know what I mean? I wish I did have friends. Okay? But unfortunately, I feel very, very unsafe all the time. I can never feel safe. I will never feel safe. Okay? Because these people have done too many stunts to me in the past. But me being a gender bender was in no way of me trying to cause a ruckus. I was just being myself. Meaning, like, I saw the picture of I think I'm going to use that picture for this slide. I will do that. Hang on a second. I'm going to get that picture. Okay, so I'm back with the other slide. So I was looking at the picture of me as Calvin Brazan Braganza wearing the turban. And, the first thought that came to my mind was when I saw these pictures, I kept thinking, maybe he was wearing the turban because I know that I feel as though dealing at that with who he was dealing with at that time, of course, there's a lot of racism. So of course he was taking advantage of having some form of ambiguity by covering his curly hair. Now he could always have shaved. He probably did shave his hair a couple of times, but his hair is obviously going to grow back curly. Which if you were to compare him to, like, so for example, like an Indian man or a Sikh person who wears a turban, Indian people's hair is generally straight, okay? And of course, um, see Calvin Braganza's hair, it would be growing back very, very curly, and that would be a dead giveaway. However, I was thinking, a few nights ago as I was laying in bed, I kept thinking, okay, I remember watching The Wizard of Oz, right? And I remember the Wizard of Oz, not the Wizard of Oz, but the fortune teller in that movie was wearing a turban. And then I remember thinking about Zoltar. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Zoltar, but he's one of those things that you used to see in front of grocery stores or department stores. It was like, you put like 25 cents in and he would tell you a fortune. He used to like, spit out a little piece of paper in one of those little like, I guess you would call it a vending machine of some sorts. But anyway, he was a little fortune teller. And he would wear like a little turban. So I guess the turban kind of served two purposes for Braganza. Okay, I'm just kind of putting this video along, kind of as I'm going along. So anyway, I had mentioned in my last video, I think it was yesterday's video or the day before. Anyway, I was talking about how, I was being targeted and persecuted for my religious beliefs and the things that I was doing. And I had mentioned that I was frustrated or I was a little irritated because um, people like Aleister Crowley, um, was able to function and live and thrive, write books and do things that he wanted to do without any sort of persecution. I'm sure that people did look down on him. I know there's been people who I've even seen people write, what do you call it, articles and things against Aleister Crowley. However, because no matter who you are, if you're in the public eye, people are always going to debate about you. You're going to have people that like you, people who follow you. You're going to have people who are against you. Okay, but what I'm saying is he at least was not blacklisted. He was not somebody who was targeted to that sort of extent. Of course, I do believe that Aleister Crowley did work for British intelligence. That's at least rumored. I don't know if it's true or not. But anyway, I know that in what people are always going to classify the occult as a form of witchcraft. Okay, it doesn't matter which line you're from. People who like for example, a lot of Hispanic people burn novena candles, okay, who are a part of the Catholic faith, okay, but that's not really ordained by the Catholic Church. It's not something that they really approve of, but some people would look at that as a form of witchcraft, okay. People who practice voodoo, it's voodoo, but people classify it as witchcraft, okay. There, like I said, the word prophetess and the word witch are very similar in, if you look it up in the, like, a thesaurus. What do you call it? Is that what they call it? Like when a writer is writing, right? They want to use a certain word and they don't want to use the same word over and over and over again. They might get stuck. So they're like, okay, what other word can I use instead of using the same word in the same sentence? Okay, so they'll look it up in a thesaurus, which provides a different word for the word, so you don't sound repetitive. Okay, if you look up the word prophetess, chances are that word witch is going to pop up. If you look up the word witch, what's another word for witch? That word prophetess is going to come up, or prophet or prophetess, okay? Apparently people who have special gifts, have been persecuted for a very long time. Not necessarily in religious form, okay? People who have gifts like ESP, people who have gifts like clairvoyance, audience, clairsentient, things who have any sort of gift. And in my case, I had those, and I also had the ability to apparently fly. Okay, which I still sometimes have a hard time digesting because that's like seems phenomenal to me. But that's life. Anyway, but I know that any sort of practice like that many years ago was looked upon as a threat to people. Because even if you had good gifts, like for me, I don't believe that I've ever used my gifts for anything bad. For protection, if somebody's coming up against me, of course I'm going to protect myself. But my point is, it's like, I think people have had fears that if people have special gifts, they're going to use it against other people. So people with special gifts have always been targeted, okay, or looked upon with suspicion, fear, but deep down inside, a lot of envy. So people who didn't have those gifts, sometimes felt, well, here's how what it really boils down to. They feared that the gods favored them. And why does the god favor them? And they would feel jealous, competitive, and envious. Okay. Now, mind you, when it came to things like this, the witch trials and stuff like that, a lot of times those people who were getting persecuted weren't even witches. They weren't. What some witches like go out of their way to obtain certain skills and gifts. So they might go to like a certain deity and ask for those gifts to be given to them when they never had them in the first place. And so they would create practices to do those things, okay? They're not naturally gifted with these sort of things, okay? But my point is that a lot of people were persecuted not because they were actual witches, but because people wanted things like their property and stuff, okay? Anyway, witchcraft laws were passed in I think it was June 1st of 1653. Witchcrafts were implemented. I'm talking about the UK, okay? They were implemented. They were outlawing any kind of witchcraft related activities, whether you are a European practicing witch, natural, or somebody who picked it up as a religion to try to gain powers, whatever it was against the law, okay? And it was in 1951 that there was an appeal that made it easier for people to come out with their practices. So people who were in hiding, like for example in England or whatever, okay, they could be. It was just recognized as like something you could do, right? So I know in 1954, Gerald Gardner published Witchcraft Today, which was a book that was for modern practitioners of European forms of witchcraft. Okay. Did anyone target him? Did anyone target him? No. Okay. But apparently, I ended up killing myself in 1956. You see what I'm saying? This is all very strange to me, but I feel as though C.B. Berganza was exploited, and he was abused, and he was targeted, and he was used, and he was distanced from everything that he knew, and it was wrong. And I suffered a huge injustice. You know, I know that this issue is very widespread. Everybody knows who I am. I'm not dumb. I understand everybody knows who I am. This is something that was played out in the open for everyone to see. Employers, my neighbors, my ex-family members, the people who targeted me, everybody. They cannot deny that this happened. No one can say that this didn't happen. Okay? Nobody can. Now, I also wanted to say that I was someone who was stolen from my own country. I was stolen from Ethiopia. Now, I don't know much about, like, what do you call it? Beings. I guess I do kind of understand the strategies of war, because I find that, you have to be able to understand how to manipulate, how to move and shift things, okay? But I've never saw myself as a political person, okay? I've never, like, spoke against any president. I've never spoke against any king, ruler, anything like that. I have always been minding my own business. This is the kind of person I've always been. Okay. But I've been targeted. And I missed out a lot in life. You know? Apparently all I really wanted in life was a form of contentment. You know what I mean? I wanted a happy family, obviously. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that saddened me. It's like, man, I didn't get to have custody of my kid, because of outside intrusion. Did Gerald Garner get to raise his kids? I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. People like um, Anton LaVey, who practiced Satanism, got to raise his kids. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not a Satanist. And apparently, Anton LaVey was a Satanist, but he didn't believe in Satan. Okay, but if you want to know about Anton LaVey, go ahead and look him up. Okay, but he obviously was somebody who was very bold and outright, against the Christian faith. He had no problem talking about how he felt about Christianity and its people and their God. He had no problem with that. Okay, and I wasn't even doing anything like that. But Anton LaVey got to raise his kids, and he got to live to an older age, and he got to die of however his natural causes were. And I have been nothing but trampled on. And yes, I am pissed off about it. And it did make me feel very upset because I see that I have been dealt an injustice. I've had people trying to manipulate my life forever. I was stolen. Stolen. Okay? I don't know. Because, like, I don't know what a prince does. Okay? Everybody has their own, I don't think I could take on the kind of responsibility that the, emperor did. To be responsible for the people and all that stuff. That's a lot. You know what I mean? But I do know that I have a spiritual nature. I'm not interested in the kingdoms of men. I just, I'm just interested in things that relate to, you know, God, the higher power, nature, things like that. I don't have an interest in arguing about my earthly position because I don't think anything on this earth is worth anything. I think it's a waste of time for me anyway. You know what I mean? It seems like you're either a backstabber, you're somebody who's on the spiritual side. I don't know. It just seems that way because, like I said, fortunately, all I've ever known was bad people. I've never known anyone who was decent in my life. Um, what else did I want to say? Yeah, I mentioned that. I have not checked my Patreon account. I am still working on my content. I still have to finish a few things, and this is going to be my second quarterly newsletter. I know that I've dealt with the stagnation of my Patreon account is also related to these people. And everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. And I'm just kind of twiddling my thumbs at this point. Okay. Like I said, this issue was played out in front of everyone. Everyone knows about it. And I don't think news coverage is important on this issue. And I don't really think it should be blown up. It should be something that needs to just blow over, really. And so I can go on with my life. Okay. I feel the only way I'm going to shut up about my life right now and bitching about this whole issue is for me to start making money and getting on with my life. I need to go on with my life. You know what I mean? I feel as though I've been stagnated for entirely too long. You know what I mean? And I see that there was a bullshit. I see that there was no justification for what happened other than me being a person of color who possessed something that a lot of people wish they had. Okay. Because I know, people like Aleister Crowley, and I'm not in any way knocking Crowley or anything. I don't really have an opinion of Crowley one way or the other. But Crowley was basically somebody who was inspired by me, but was able to, speak his mind and do the things that he wanted to do without anybody, causing him any grief. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. I am very grateful that you guys tuned in and watched my video. I appreciate everybody who supports me And I say that sincerely. I am not somebody who talks a lot of bullshit. I wish you guys well, and I will be back with another video shortly. Take care. Bye-bye.